Great. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Examples from the Field, Putting Family Engagement Data into Action, presented by ParentGauge. A couple of housekeeping items as you're logging in today. You are joining in on mute, but by all means, this is an interactive session. So throughout our session, if you have any comments that you'd like to add to the chat, feel free to utilize that. You can also enter in questions, and we're going to see if we have time at the end for those additional questions as well. So make use of that chat. Um, Also, as we're going through, like I mentioned, we're going to be asking questions of our panel, but we would love to hear your commentary there, and we may be able to even share some of those comments. So feel free to use that chat, and we want to hear your voice along the way. That said, I'm Sandy Oseguera. I'm the product manager here at ParentGauge, and I'm going to turn it over to our host, Lucretia.
Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you with us. I am the ParentGauge consultant, and I am happy to present to you our three panelists who are going to give you some actual, real answers based upon what it is they do. And I'm looking forward to this so much. So the first one that we have is Jamie. Jamie, if you'd like to say hello and just give a little blurb about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Lucretia. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Corrier. I am the PFCE coordinator at Astor Head Start here in Dutchess County, New York. We've been using ParentGauge since its inception, and it's been very helpful with grant writing and making program improvements.
Great. Thank you so much. We are glad to have you. Our next panelist is Nyanda. Nyanda, you want to say hello?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Nyanda Finley de Santos. I'm the Director of Family and Community Engagement at Community Services for Children in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We've been using ParentGauge, I think, since 2018. And one of the things that I really enjoy most about it is being able to have really positive outcomes to share with the community about the work that we're doing.
Oh. So sorry, technical difficulties. I was trying to unmute myself and was not having a good time with it. Thank you, Nyanda, for that. Isaiah, if you'd like to give us a little feel of who you are too, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Isaiah Santa with the Hillsborough County Head Start Data and Quality Assurance Unit. I am the unit supervisor, and we pretty much in this unit focus and work on, the data, the analytical statistics part of the program. So nice to be here.
Well, we thank you all three of you, for your the wonderful insight that you're going to give and the time that you took for us. So to get started, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask a question. Each panelist is going to answer that question. While they're talking, if you think of anything that you would like to ask them regarding that question, go ahead and put it in the chat. If we have time, we'll reach it before we get to the next question. Otherwise, we'll try to do them all at the end. But we do want to keep it as an open forum. So with that having said, if y'all are ready, we'll get started on the first question. And Jamie, I'm just going in order of how you guys are. So I'm going to ask it to you first. How often does your program collect family engagement data?
Oh, sure. So we do ParentGauge interviews twice a year. Here at Astor, we do our mid-interview from November till January, and we do our post-interview from May through June, but we do not do an initial interview.
Excellent, thank you. Nyanda, how about you guys? How do you?
We also do it twice a year. We do the mid-review in January and the end-of-year review in May.
Okay. And Isaiah, I believe you are a little bit different. How do you guys do it?
Yes, we are. So our team collects general program data as needed. So it may be daily, weekly, or monthly, but we also collect, program data via ParentGauge interviews 3 times a year. Our first initial interviews are done 3 months after the beginning of the school year, usually around November. Our second interviews or mid-year interviews are conducted 3 months later, around February, and then we conclude our yearly interviews with the end of the year, usually by this time, at the end of April, beginning of May.
Excellent, thank you. I know that there's a lot of different programs that use things other than Parent Gauge, so it's very interesting to see how they are all used. If I could go ahead and see the slide for question 2, unless there's any questions. Okay. So, Nyanda, I'm gonna pick on you to go first this time.
No problem.
What type of reports do you generally use to direct any program additions or changes?
So we use a few different reports. In Parent Gauge, we use the baseline and growth reports. We also use Child Plus as our data entry system. So we use some of the management reports, and we have some custom reports that we created with Child Plus that really hone in on some areas of family engagement that we wanted to be able to report out on. We also do parent committee reports on a monthly basis. So we get a lot of data coming in from parents in the field that we're able to use to course correct if needed. We do a parent interest survey at the beginning of the year with all families in the very first month of service. And then we also do an annual review with home visitors where we really hear from them directly. What are the things that worked? What do you need to improve? What changes should we make for the next program year? And we follow their advice.
Oh, that's excellent. Pulling in everybody makes it a real team effort. I love that. Isaiah, how about you? What type of
Yes.
reports do you generally use?
Yes, so besides the with the exception, right, of Child Plus and any other internal databases and reports, we use all Parent Gauge reports to recommend any additions, to recommend any improvements and changes. But both the mid-year and end of the year growth reports are the ones that we use the most, since they give us, right, they provide us with both, pre and post information regarding our parents' experiences, as well as the program's impact on our families in general. So yes, we mostly use the Parent Gauge mid-year and end of the year for decision-making purposes.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you guys very much. It's good to get a base on what's working for you all. So if there's no questions regarding question 2, let's go ahead and move on to question 3. Oh, wait, did I forget one? I forgot Jamie. Jamie, I'm sorry, we're gonna back up. I apologize.
It's okay. Thankfully, I'm very similar to Nyanda's program. We use Child Plus reports and their PIR reports to help do some changes and additions to our programming. We also offer agency satisfaction reports where we do that twice a year, and we poll the parents and find out how we're doing, what do they need. We use Ready for K reports, Ready for K, the texting service, to help promote parent-child engagement. And we do use the Parent Gauge to assess where we're falling in. And I really like looking at the last open-ended question to see where families feel we could make changes in their words.
That open-ended question, that's on the Parent Gauge reports. Yeah, okay.
Lucretia, you're on mute. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. Big breath. Okay, question 3. We're going to start with Isaiah. We're not going to forget anyone. Isaiah, can you please tell us your process for how you determine how the findings from that data decide your future actions?
So the process. So yes, we may use the data to decide future actions and, potential change both at a program-wide level as well as individually per family. So initially, we will meet internally as a data unit, to discuss the results of the initial, mid-year, and end of the year interview. So while reviewing the interview results, right, we will focus on the numerical data and visuals, And we may also identify trends based on the parents' individual responses, so the qualitative data. After this, we will proceed in creating a final data report that may include a series of visuals, data interpretations, findings, and a few recommendations. Now, this information, right, this report, these analyses, will be later shared with all other program areas, most likely in one of our data huddle meetings, for their information, for their reference, and for their, decision making in general. So yes, that is pretty much our, process in general.
Excellent, thank you. That is a really good process. Jamie, could you please answer for us?
Sure. We obviously have some certain program goals and grant goals that we're trying to achieve. So a lot of times we'll use this data to look for specific things that we can improve on throughout our grant term. This year, this grant term, we've really focused on healthy habits and look at that specific question in great detail every time we are doing a round of interviews. Leadership will also review the results and try and improve upon our lowest scores and really highlight the high scores and make sure that every center might have the same opportunities to achieve those high scores as well.
That's nice. I like that. That's great. Nyanda, it's your turn if you could please answer this question.
Sure. So one of the things that we do is that at the mid-year point, we have the teachers and family service staff meet together and review their caseload and individual level data, which gives them an opportunity to really look at how are they providing services and what is the impression that parents have at that mid-year point. Are there things that they can do together to course correct so that we're enhancing the experience that parents have in lifetime? And then one of the other things we do regularly is share data with our teams in service and staff meetings. So we're looking at those mid-year and growth reports at the end of the year and really talking about what does this mean? Why are we seeing trends in this area and what can we do about it? And then we also have a cross-functional PS management meeting, which is all of our preschool management getting together and really digging into the data and looking at how does this align with what we've learned in our community assessment? How does this align with what staff are telling us? Because that qualitative data that we get from supervision is really important as well. And then try to figure out where are the priorities for next program year. We'd love to take on every challenge, but sometimes you have to set priorities.
That's nice. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Question 4. And Jamie, we're going to start with you on this one. What is an example of a change or addition you put into play based upon the data and that had great results?
Sure. So I'm going to go and circle back to the whole healthy habits. That was a target for us for years. And since we have really focused on it, we have implemented garden groups at our centers with the families and the staff. We've also implemented the I'm Moving, I'm Learning curriculum at 2 of our centers. And that helps with a lot of parent engagement because there's a whole parent piece to that as well. We now have a dietitian that works with our program, and she's able to assist in BMIs and diet plans for the families. She can meet one-on-one with the families. We really find that to be a very helpful resource. We've also done hands-only CPR, made that available at every center for our families. We've done asthma sessions, and they've also started making their own first aid kits. So we're hoping that we will continue to see stronger scores with the healthy habits by making all these changes possible.
Nice. That's a lot. That's really great. Nyanda, how about you? Can you give us an example of something that you do?
Sure. So we really looked at the area D2A, which has to do with how the programs helped the family get resources to support their child with disabilities. And so that's an area that we've focused on over the last few years, actually. Making sure to partner with our intermediate units. We have 2 collaborations in each of the 2 counties that we're serving. So working closely with them to provide professional development for our home visitors who are explaining a lot of these processes to families, and talking to them about resources and actually helping them complete the paperwork that they need to do to get the services in place. Some of that also happens with teachers. So we have monthly teacher and family service collaborative meetings where they're planning out what needs to happen next and how to support. We've also partnered with our mental health consultant, who is an amazing resource. And she's done training for our staff and made sure that anything out there in the community comes their way quickly so that they can really be referring families. We have, I would say, an emerging system in our community that's really supporting families with various disabilities, autism diagnoses and things that weren't available maybe 3 years ago and now are. So we're really trying to stay on top of that and make sure that staff can be a resource for families in the area.
Great. Isaiah, how about you?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So not too long ago, perhaps a little over a year ago, the data team, our unit, observed, a lower score in the health and nutrition section as it relates to, I could say, improving parent and child healthy habits, right? And based on this finding, this data finding, and other, internal reports, other internal factors, as a unit, we decided to put additional efforts on educating parents on any health-related topics, right? A topic such as asthma, right? That was trending by that time, and the importance of staying healthy, right? So this was a project that, not only involved the program staff, but also individuals from local, universities, colleges, institutions, as well as government agencies such as the Department of Health here in Florida. So yes, after these, implementations, these actions took place, we saw an increase in our health scores, and other initiatives were executed. So
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Audience, if you have anything that you have done in your program, please share it in the chat. We all want to learn from each other. So, but panelists, thank you. That was excellent. Next question's a little bit harder. How about something that didn't go as planned? Something that you put together and it still didn't quite come out the way you had hoped. Nyanda, why don't you start us off on this?
Well, I'm going to share an example of community asset mapping. We endeavored to really teach our staff how to use community asset mapping a few years ago so that they could really get to know the communities they're in. We're stretched across multiple counties, and many of the staff have worked in the same area for a long time. We also have a lot of pop-up resources that have happened over the last few years. So we wanted to be able to connect them better to the community. A positive outcome that really came from that experience was they started to implement it in their parent committee meetings and work with parents from the very beginning of the year to do some asset mapping. And that led to increased partnerships with community members in their local communities, having people come out for presentations and providing support. I would say overall, it has been an unexpected success. The challenge was at the beginning. Staff were moving so much more quickly than our internal systems were. So they were getting people in from organizations we had never even vetted. And we had to say, whoa, can you at least give us a heads up so we can check it out and make sure this is aligned with our organizational values, make sure that these are legit organizations or people that are coming. So I would just say it was both an excellent outcome and a learning lesson for us. Sometimes we have to pace ourselves and be a little clearer about communication and make sure we're all on the same page before we get going.
Yeah, but it was just a lesson learned.
Absolutely.
And you guys moved right through it. That's great. Isaiah, how about you? Do you have an example of when you put in a change and it didn't go according to plan?
Yes, I do. So, an example that I may provide um, in this area is again related to health, nutrition, and overall healthy habits. And this is actually ongoing with us. So our population, our children's body mass index, BMI numbers, overweight, obese, underweight, they have seen a spike in the past. And what we try to implement as a team to mitigate this matter was an increase, right, in the awareness amongst parents. So this means that these findings, were shared during parent meetings and parent orientations, and then education and resources on this topic was actually offered to them as well. Um, Nonetheless, even though we executed these and other strategies, we did not see a huge impact on the BMI numbers. But as of now, the team, the unit, we're working hard to, change the strategy and considering other options to better help us rectify this issue.
So sorry. Even though what you first tried didn't work, it just had you go in a different direction. So you didn't just drop the ball, you just looked for another way to go about it. Very cool. Jamie, it is your turn to answer this one.
Oh, thank you. So historically, our lowest area is discipline strategies. So we looked into that and we tried to educate the parents with little palm cards. It was like 101 ways to praise your kid. There was 10 positive discipline strategies, and that didn't really work. So we really focused on our positive solutions workshops with families to prevent challenging behavior, in which like we do touch upon timeout and other discipline strategies, and our attendance falls off. Parents come at first and then they kind of stop coming. So we haven't made really any gains here. The things that we've tried are just kind of staying stagnant. So hopefully in the future, we can learn from maybe another program as to what worked well for them.
Thank you
Great.
for sharing that.
Yeah, and the chat is coming through with some resources that we've seen work when it comes to engaging with community partners, using Monday.com and other resources to generate monthly reports. And Holly has a great story for this question where we provided later hours for parents and customers, but no one came during the later hours. So, which is, but with that, we'll go on into the next question. But please feel free to continue to chat in. We love hearing this.
Absolutely. So here we are. We're already on question 6. And this is taken particular from Parent Gauge. We asked the question on Parent Gauge. I feel connected to other parents and adults. And one thing we have noticed is that no matter what program we are talking to, they're generally in the mid-range. It's just a hard nut to crack. So we wanted to ask our panelists if they're also finding this to be the case, and if they have found a way, if there's something that they've implemented that makes a difference. And Isaiah, for this question, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, sure. So in our case, we have been using Parent Gauge for 4 years approximately. And when we first started using Parent Gauge in 2020, we were also in the midst of of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And as most of you are aware, all schools, including Head Start centers, they had to be closed. So they were closed for safety reasons, which also meant that the parent to parent and parent to staff connection was also affected, right? So yes, we did notice that in this specific area, we scored significantly lower, right? When compared to the other areas. But now I want to mention that once the COVID-19 safety regulations came to a halt and the centers reopened once again, we did notice a slight increase in this question, in this area, which my assumption is that it may have come as a result of parents being able to meet face to face and interact with one another once again at their centers.
Okay, so getting that face to face is, it sounds like it's very important. And that's what you're looking for. And Jamie, can you go ahead and answer this question as well?
Yes, absolutely. We've definitely increased our parent groups and opportunities for them to mingle at each center. The parents do seem to enjoy them, so this has been a success. Some of the things we've done are we've had yoga, we've had choreographers come in. That was super cool. The parents really enjoyed that. We have Father's Group where we have a field day outside. That's coming up, and we always have a huge turnout. We've done paint and sips, no sew blankets, the garden groups. So we do a lot, but then the parents still say they don't come. So it's really interesting that they'll say that they don't come, but we provide those opportunities for them. And then, we look into further, so why don't you come? And it's a lot of times it's work or it's transportation is a huge issue. So it's helping us learn, but it's also been successful in some ways.
Nice, okay. Nyanda, how
So-
about you?
So for us, this is an area that I would consider a strength overall. One of the things that we had to do was kind of have a mindset shift. When somebody's talking about how they're feeling, that's not something I get to own or control, right? And this is one of those unique questions in this survey that's really asking about my emotions, right? We don't know what goes into somebody feeling connected to other adults or what their desire is to do that. So we had to kind of shift our ownership of this one. We offer activities. We do a parent and interest survey with every family at the beginning of the year. And that survey gives us a lot of valuable data, both on the individual and caseload level, about what it is that families are interested in, what might they leave the house for, what time of day they want to do that, what is their purpose in this. And so we really kind of have been able to shift to offering both a mix of in-person and virtual, evening and daytime, but also remembering that engagement isn't about activities necessarily. It's about your relationship with the program, your relationship to the staff who are connected to your child in the program. And so we have really spent a lot of time building those relationships and making sure that families feel connected in the way that they've identified wanting to be connected to our program. And so what that looks like for us is individualized services for every family. And we do have the opportunity to do monthly home visits with families in Head Start, which has really helped to bridge that gap. So even if they're not feeling connected to every family in their child's classroom, they're feeling connected to us, right? And the other thing that we do is really try to explain to them, what is the purpose of these activities? The purpose is not that you come and listen to my lecture. The purpose is that we're giving you a safe space to engage with other parents who have similar interests and are invested in their children the way you are. And when they know that, and when staff can really facilitate with a radical welcome and a space for them to just be and sip some coffee and get to know each other, it's a very different feeling than I'm here as the teacher and you're here as the student.
That is super interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I like that. You can have both the best world at the same time.
Yeah, and that really echoes some of what we're seeing in the chat also. Holly mentioned that they provide parent engagement sessions at different times and aren't necessarily getting a lot of parents at each one, but they're getting that opportunity to connect in smaller groups. I also saw a mention of parent cafes, which I know is a really popular model for a lot of programs out there, which seems like it's working for a lot of others. And then some struggles, right? We know there's some language barrier struggles, and depending on what part of the country you're in, those are amplified sometimes and make that even trickier. And I think Stacy had a really interesting comment. She said they added a financial class and a carnival night, which is very distinct events, but it's you know, bringing out different parents, which is really interesting there.
Oh. So we'll go ahead and go to question 7. Jamie, we're going to start with you on this one. Sharing your report scores, as well as the success of program initiatives. Does that help your staff? Do they feel a greater connection to the families as well as to the program in a whole if you are able to offer that?
Oh, absolutely. So we have found by sharing the scores with the staff, they're able to see where the parents kind of rate them, and the open-ended questions and the responses. It really helps to motivate them and to validate the relationships that they're building with the families. And it kind of also encourages them to create more opportunities to build more relationships with the families, or maybe see where they can have some self-reflection and some improvement. But our scores aren't terrible. So it's also nice to see that the staff get to see how grateful the community is for our program.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Nayanda, same question. How about you?
I mean, everything that Jamie just said is spot on for us as well. I see that it builds connections, and for us, our home visitors and early Head Start and Head Start are the ones conducting the surveys. So it really is beneficial for the teachers who maybe don't have that same relationship and connection with some of the parents, but are able to hear like they're really valuing the things that you're offering. And they really value the relationship and the growth that they see in their child because of the work you're doing. And that really develops a deeper connection between the teachers and the parents because they're not the ones doing the survey.
Oh, that's lovely. That warms my heart. I love that. Isaiah, how about you?
Yeah, so Lucretia, I need to concur with both Leanda and Jamie. For us, this is an absolute yes. My team, my unit, they really enjoy reading, the parents' comments, their feedback, their thoughts on our program, because, for them, this creates a story, right? Which to some extent connects the staff to the school, to the children, to the families. And also, this feedback usually gives staff a snapshot idea, almost like a score, right, on how we're doing, individually at a center level, as well as program wide. So yes, sharing these scores does make, staff feel more connected to our Head Start families.
It's kind of like a wheel within a wheel. Everything circles around together, and what you share with the staff, share with the families, back and forth. I love that. Thank you so much. Great responses. Okay, question 8. Nyanda, we're going to pick on you this time to lead us off. We all know getting good data requires good interviews, and sometimes it can be hard. It's not always, perfection. But how do you assist your interviewers in having confidence for their interviews?
So I think one of the things that we do every year with staff before we start the first interviews is do some training and retraining of those who might need a refresher. And during that time, they have a chance to practice. They do some role play, they do some scenarios, and really get comfortable with the material. Those who have been doing it for a long time really don't need a script. They're able to kind of weave it into a dialogue and then answer the questions as they go because they're very comfortable with it. And then we also offer the opportunity for them to observe other staff who are more experienced and see there's lots of different ways of doing this, right? It doesn't have to be one way. And so they are able to do that, and managers are able to do observations as well to provide support if somebody's particularly worried about it. But they're doing this in the context of a relationship that's already been established in our case. And so they're already familiar with the family. The family is already trusting of them. And so it isn't a hard ask in most cases.
Awesome. Having that backup strength support from the team. I imagine that makes a huge difference. Isaiah, how about you?
Yes, yes. So before we initiate any of our interviews, um, what we do is we get together and we conduct a pre-planning session where we all watch parent engaged videos. Most of them are found online, YouTube. And there's a lot of resources online. Um, After this activity, we will go through all the interview questions together just to make sure that the team, that everyone understands what we're asking, and to ensure that we are all on the same page. Then once it is finalized, at the end of this pre-planning meeting, we will have a session, where staff will share their past experiences and pretty much have a conversation um, revolving around best practices, right, to other interviewers. Now, in the case, and it happens a lot of the times, in the case that an interviewer, right, is new to Parent Gauge, what I usually have them do is shadow, a seasoned, a veteran staff in their first at least 5 interviews, just to increase their knowledge, um, just for them to understand the dynamics of the interview and just give them an idea on how the process is.
I love that. That is excellent. That's great. And that you guys have conversations, which is what we tell all the interviewers, to use Parent Gauge as a conversation, and you're just bringing it around twofold. That's lovely. Jamie, how about you?
So I have to say that I really don't do anything different than my co-panelists here. So when a new worker starts, before they start doing the interviews, they do the YouTube trainings, the mock interviews that are on YouTube. They will sit with other advocates as well and, just be silent observer of their interviews. I will go out and do a few with them at first. I also encourage them until they're comfortable to use the script, read the script until you can master this and maybe be able to just have a more natural conversation when your confidence is up. But we do pretty much the same as everybody else.
That's great. Thank you very much. Question 9. We're getting close to the end, y'all. Y'all have been hanging in with me. I so greatly appreciate it. Isaiah, we're going to start off with you. What would you say is the hardest part of doing assessments, and how does your team overcome that?
Yeah, so I could totally appreciate that. Throughout my career, I have created, administered many assessments. And I could tell you that Parent Gauge assessments, this tool is pretty straightforward, simple, user-friendly, in comparison to other scientific um, measures. But for us, for my unit, the hardest part of completing this assessment, in this case, a Parent Gauge interview, is actually having, the parents set aside time to actually complete the assessment, right? And I know this matter could be, could occur in other areas, in other programs. And while we understand that, parents, they have life, right? They are usually busy trying to keep up with their daily duties, um, work, schools, whatever their case is. And this may be a challenge, but what has really helped us in the past is that, we notify parents, right, of any upcoming interviews. It's all about time management, right? We notify parents of any upcoming interviews with sufficient time, with ample time. And, by doing this, they could always plan and set time to complete the interviews. And that's pretty much what we usually do, to overcome this matter.
That is a great answer. Yeah, time management. I like that. Let me see. Question 9. Jamie, you are next. What is the hardest for you guys?
I agree with Isaiah. Timing, time management, the parents that cancel that home visit or the conference, that can be frustrating for workers. So a lot of times we'll know who's going to be the families that may cancel. And I'll encourage them, put them at the top of your list, like have them be one of the ones you plan to do first. So this way, if they do cancel, you're not risking the being past the deadline. Another thing is with caseloads being high, there could be a lot of interviews to do, sometimes in a short amount of time. So what we encourage them to do is if it's a shared family where say there's a family advocate and a home visitor, we ask the home visitor to lead the interview because we only do one interview per family. And then the advocate would only ask the center-based or disability questions for their child to try and save time and take a little bit of the interviews off of the person that has the higher caseloads time. That seems to help and it seems to work. But I would definitely say, you know, the time, you have to be intentional and really plan. Maybe this family is the best one to do on a home visit. Maybe this family is the best one to catch at the center at pickup or drop off. And it's really up to the advocates to figure out who they should target in what way.
I like that. Okay, good. So it sounds to me like it's not just all on one person to decide. You guys have a plan in place. That's wonderful. Nyanda, how about you guys?
Well, very similar. Time and the perception of time is a big part of the problem sometimes. I think we specifically do it in January and May. We don't do it outside of those months. So staff know what's coming. They know what to expect. They can prep families in the home visit prior. And they're really able to dedicate time during that meeting to really have a conversation with families and walk through this. Now, if somebody has another priority, if family has a more pressing issue or wants to talk about something else, we don't pressure them. We'll give them a phone call later in the month and complete it that way, which is one of the things I love about Parent Gauge. There's flexibility in the way that it's delivered. And there's flexibility within our department in terms of supporting our team and making sure that if somebody is struggling or if somebody's out for an extended period of time, someone else in the team will pick that up. And we don't, you know, we're not trying to make anybody feel bad for not getting something done. We'll get it done with you because their commitment is to making sure that every parent has the opportunity to share their input. It's not about a task, it's about them having a voice. And so we try to be really flexible about how we get that information.
Thank you. I love how throughout this whole thing, the underlying theme seems to be, no matter what the question is, teamwork. I just love that. That is such a neat thing to see. Last and final question. We always try to end with heart. So, Jamie, we're going to start with you. What meaningful results have you found conducting these interviews with families?
So the open-ended questions. I absolutely love the open-ended questions and really getting more meaningful responses from the family, not just a rating scale of how, like Nyanda said, like how they feel, like getting the real emotions behind how they feel, why they feel that way, what the staff means to them, what the program means to them. It's just so heartwarming, especially after COVID, to hear parents' responses of being welcomed back in the center, doing parent involvement stuff, and seeing their children succeed. It's also really helped us to change the program for the better for the parents. They're able to tell us what they need, such as like transportation and longer hours. So we've decided for the next program term that we are going to extend our hours. And it's based on parent feedback that, you know, they need us longer during the day. Currently, we're only a 5-hour program. So we're going to extend to 6 hours and see how that goes, both for staffing and the families. But we're really trying to support them the way they want to be supported. We're not in any position to have busing, unfortunately, but when they talk about a need for transportation, all right, let's sit down, let's go through the bus schedule. maybe this parent lives down the street and you can carpool, or trying to build connections. What resources do we have to make transportation better? We've also advocated with our county bus system to make sure that there's stops available for the families in front of all the centers. And that has been very successful in one of our larger centers where transportation is just, it's difficult. And I think the parents hearing that we hear them, they see that we're trying to make this better for them. That's like what's most meaningful when we conduct like these interviews and we get their opinions. Like, we hear you. We're not just asking and not doing anything about it.
That is great. That is lovely. Thank you. Nyanda, how about you guys?
I think one of the things that's come out of this process for us is that it's really, it deepens the connection between the home visitor who's conducting the interview and the teacher who's receiving that information. When they review that, the teachers are able to see the parents in a different light. Maybe it's because they don't have that feedback. You know, getting feedback that's honest from somebody, whoever that is, that's a gift, right? And we're doing monthly home visits or weekly and early Head Start. So we have a really tight connection, but our teachers don't necessarily always have that. And so when they get to share that data with the teachers on an individual level, it's so meaningful for them. It gives them affirmation about the things that they're doing. And it also gives them some ideas about what they might want to work on over the next few months. And that is precious. And then the other thing that I feel like as a program this has given us is it really has validated the critical work that we're doing with families. This 2-generational model that Head Start is built around. So often the emphasis is what's happening only with the child, but I want to know what's happening for the adults because they're going to be there long term. And it's given us that, and it's made it very understandable in outcomes language, the benefits of those programs and the things that we have to offer.
Thank you. That's lovely. Oh, I like that. Isaiah, how about you?
Yeah, that's absolutely. So I have to agree with Jamie on this one. And to us, the most meaningful results in all these years, all these 4 years using Parent Gauge were obtained actually from the individual open-ended responses, right? And in my experience, many individuals, many agencies tend to overlook open-ended, qualitative data. And I understand, this information may be, intimidating to a lot of us. It may be difficult to quantify, and process all at once, but I can assure, everyone in this call that qualitative information is as important as quantitative numerical data, right? And you will all be surprised on the amount of detailed information. It could be program-wide, it could be specific to a family and child, but you'll be surprised of the amount of information that you may find amongst open-ended qualitative data.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. You guys, thank you for your honest responses and the answers that you gave give a lot of us for thought on how we can use that information in different ways. Sandy, do we have anything from the Q&A that you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, we had some great responses to this question in the chat as well. Holly again chiming in with with a great response about how it does give that better connection to family members, and then they seem more open in general to disclose things about themselves and their children, which I think is really at the heart of out of a lot of these interviews. Is we want to get closer to that family and we want them to give us open and honest feedback there. And then Claudette also pointed out, it really depends on the population being served and meeting their needs. And through these interviews, we can find that what we're assuming they need or they want isn't necessarily true, right? So I think one thing that comes up when we talk about family engagement and decisions around family engagement is we want parents to be a part of that equation, right? And so I think that really expands on that. So that does bring us to our last question that we had directly for our panel, but now you can, in the chat, feel free to chime in. If you have any questions about Parent Gauge or for our panelists directly, please go ahead, add that to the chat. We have a couple minutes here where we're gonna try and get through any that come through for time allowing. We did have one question earlier, because a lot of what we've been talking about today has been in-person engagement efforts, really the interviews themselves. For Parent Gauge, we typically suggest those are in person because we want to maximize that in-person time, because there is a lot that you get from being in person that you just can't capture other ways. But I'd love to hear from the panel as well. I think there were some mentions of struggles. We know certain families are going to cancel and things like that. Do you provide virtual options, or how do you try to connect with families who are really resistant or not able to be in person and make those types of interviews or engagement efforts?
I can speak for my program. That's really a last case scenario. If it's an employment thing, we'll suggest that the family service worker go meet the family on their lunch break or out in the community if a home visit's not possible. We don't want to fall back on the virtual so easily, but it is a potential option. And sometimes we will do the interviews over the phone if we need to.
Same for us. I mean, home visits are always best, whenever possible, but we already have an established relationship with the family, so a phone can also be fine if you already know the person and somebody that's comfortable with you and would take your phone call anyway. And so we do use that if we need to, or if it's preferred by the family.
That's a great reminder that we can be flexible. It really depends on that relationship. We had one other question.
Can we let Isaiah respond too?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Lucretia. So in my program, in our program, we do things a little different. As I mentioned earlier, in 2020, we started Parent Gauge in the verge of COVID. So we were conducting all our interviews via the phone, and we stuck to that method. It is working for us, because, it gives us the flexibility to be able to reach out to parents and contact parents at any given time, so the barrier of, and it could be a barrier of parents, meeting with their staff at a center, it could be difficult for them. So that's what we're doing at this point. We've been, conducting all the initial, mid-year, and end of the year interviews via the phone, as our primary method.
I think it's important to note that there is no right or wrong way to use this. It's what works for your program. And we totally support that. And we hope that if anybody has any questions about, better ways, or if what they're doing isn't working for them and they want to know how they can do it differently, connect with us. We'd be glad to share.
Yeah, and kind of hand in hand with that, we had another question about including extended family members or relatives, especially in situations where the custodian parent or that caretaker, the primary caretaker, isn't available. Do you have ways to connect with extended family members or other relatives? Has that been something that has come up with your programs?
Yes, absolutely. It's happened to us. But we use the same database. We use the same participant list, Bond and Child Plus. So we always have a secondary, parent caregiver information there. So that's, if we can find the primary caregiver, we'll always reach out to the second. Either could be a parent, a second parent, an uncle, close relative. But we will proceed into an interview with that person. Yes.
We generally focus on the primary parent and or parents or whoever is responsible for the child. And we flex our schedules to meet their needs. So we might be meeting at 7 p.m. or at 6 a.m. on a Friday morning. Or we'll wait all month until the one day a month that they're off. But we really try to get with them only because we find that nobody can speak better about what's happening in the family than the person who's actually responsible for the family. Although we often find many relatives willing to share information. So we really try to focus on that one relationship and prioritize that for interviews and do whatever we need to make that happen.
Our program also does the same as Nayan does. We really focus on just the primary and the secondary guardians, parents. We don't really reach out to any extended relatives. We really want the parent or the primary guardian's perspective for the interview. And we'll also, hey, if we've got to wait, we'll wait. We'll come to you. We'll be flexible as well. And we go from there, but we don't include extended family.
Thank you.
Variations,
Yeah.
differences. Yeah, good. Healthy. Sandy?
Yeah, no, you're good. I think I know we only have a couple minutes left here, so I wanted to again say thank you to everybody for attending. Thank you especially to our panelists today for
Yes.
sharing your expert opinions and how y'all are doing things. I think it's been really helpful. And I'll end with this last question as we're getting towards the end of a lot of our program years. What were your goals for the year and how did that come along throughout this year? You know, well, how are we looking at this next term? If this follows your term, you know, which it sounds like most of y'all's do, but what were your goals and how did it go, basically?
I would say for us, it's probably a little premature. We haven't finished our May assessment, so I can't say how it went quite yet. I would say anecdotally, I think folks are feeling pretty great about the year and the way that they've been able to reconnect with families and build connections with new families. So I'm hopeful that that translates into really excellent growth reports, but we shall see.
Jamie and Isaiah, y'all do you have anything to share as far as what your goals were and if we know whether we're hitting them or how that's looking, how we're feeling so far?
So let me tell some our goals in general. It's as a program in all areas. I know that we concluded our end of the year interviews this last Friday, so we're still like Neanda mentioned, we're still trying to compile, analyze the data, but we expected growth. We expected growth, and usually, I mean, it happens. We start with a lesser score at the initial mid-year. By this time, we see the increase. So that's what we are expected at this point in overall program growth in any area,
We still have a ways to go. Ours don't close until the end of June. We have made changes based on parent feedback, like I was mentioning with our hours. We're under a change of scope as well. So next year we'll see what everybody really thinks about it. Hopefully they're going to be happy with what we're doing to accommodate their needs, and I'm hopeful.
Isaiah, we're getting a lot of requests for information regarding a copy of the assessment that you use. I guess that's outside of Parent Gauge that you had talked about.
Yes, Lucretia. So it's a detailed assessment. It's an analysis, which breaks down, all the areas. It summarizes, the as I mentioned, the quantitative information, the qualitative. So, I could see what I could provide you all.
Okay, so
We
this
have
is something you do yourself.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not a program.
It is
It's
not.
you
It is
doing.
not. It's a combination of the information compiled from Parent Gauge, Excel, Word. So it's a combination of a lot of databases.
Wow.
I would love to share this, but we have a lot of internal data that we don't want to.
Yeah, it's not something you can just do a template.
Correct.
Okay, we apologize, everyone. He's too good for us. He's way up there in the stratosphere on this one. It's not a program you can purchase. But it sounds like we need to have you back and specifically go into what it is you do. It sounds like there would be a lot of interest in that. But
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
All right, gang. Well, thank you so much. That brings us to time perfectly. Look at that. We're so punctual. Thank you all for attending. If you have any questions, our email is up there. If you have any questions that you'd like us to point back to our panelists as well, we can provide that their emails if you need that as well. Again, thank you so much, Jamie, Nanda, and Isaiah for jumping on today and sharing your knowledge. Everyone have
Yes,
a good day today.
thank
Thank
you.
you
Thanks
all.
for having us.
It's great to have.
You all take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you for everything.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.